On this episode of Jets Final Drive, Sam Darnold is in the Super Bowl and he's facing off against the evil empire New England Patriots. We're going to be breaking all of that down. Also, the Jets don't technically have their new defensive coordinator, but it seems like they are zeroing in on Wink Martindale, Tanner Engstrand. He's not calling plays next year, but who will be? We are touching upon that and so much more on this episode of JFD. It is Jets Final Drive. He's Zack Rosenblatt. I am Connor Hughes. Welcome to another episode. You know, Zack, when we said that we were going to be doing these weekly, I thought that there were going to be a lot of moments throughout this offseason where we had to really put our brains together and figure out a way to create content when there wasn't necessarily content or things happening to talk about. The Jets continue to provide, though, because aside from a slew of coaches that got fired this past weekend, they're looking for, which we're going to get to all of this in detail, they're going to be looking for a new play caller. They're already looking for a new defense coordinator. They got to fill out all those positional coaches, which they now have fired. Sam Darnold is playing in the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots, coached by Mike Vrabel, who spurned the Jets when he was their number 2 option if that Patriots job had never opened, and they stuck with Gerard Mayo. Oh, by the way, there's also a foot of snow outside our houses right now. Actually, how much snow did you actually get? What did you get hit with?
I think it was the final tally? I think it was 12 inches maybe. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, dude, that is not. I'll tell you, I think I told a story earlier in one of these JFD episodes that I want to say it was week 17 we got hit with not a ton of snow, but we were supposed to get 1 or 2 inches. And overnight, before I had to leave to get to MetLife Stadium, we got hit with 3 or 4. And I think waking up, walking outside and being holy cow, I didn't really plan for this. And now I've got to shovel a bunch. I'm old now, so it felt like I broke my back. I told Bree, on my way to work, I'm we're getting a snowblower. That's it. We're 110%. We are getting a snowblower. I'm not doing this anymore. So as I was actually covering the game, I Facebook marketplaced a snowblower and found a guy that was selling one 2 miles from MetLife Stadium. It was a nice older gentleman who couldn't use it anymore and wanted to give it up. Drove over there, threw it in the back of my wife's SUV, and drove it home. Dude, I would have bet my life savings that me getting a snowblower would have guaranteed us 0 snow for the next 5 to 6 years. Until the thing broke on me, we were not going to get any snow. But the fact that now we just got a foot outside and I saw that we're supposed to get another 5 to 8 inches on Saturday, I am fully embracing snowblow culture, which by the way is a thing. We live in a neighborhood. All of the dads and guys who have snowblowers, they all come together at the same time and we all take turns blowing all of the sidewalks and taking care of the driveways of the people that don't have them. It's this new environment that I didn't know existed that I am now fully engulfed in. I am a snowblow guy.
I hate snow. I have hated it for a long time, probably since I was a kid. I mean, when I was a kid, I liked it because I would go sledding and would get to skip school and all that stuff. I do not live at a house. I live in an apartment, so I don't have to deal with shoveling, so that is quite nice, and so I'm spoiled in that way. But let me tell you, this is the time of the year, especially with how bad this winter is. This is not when I enjoy living here because I've become a baby when it comes to cold weather, especially after living in Arizona as long as I did. But yeah, I'd say on Sunday the saving grace for me actually relates to the Jets. I wasn't able to go outside very much. It was snowing like crazy here, but the Jets played the Cowboys actually in Detroit, Michigan, and in Pee Wee football. My 4-year-old nephew plays for the Cowboys, and he plays a little bit every position. I saw some highlights of him making a tackle. It's flag football, so I saw him grabbing a flag. He had great form. He threw a great pass. His receiver dropped it. So, you can only do what your receivers give you. So I'd say Solomon, shout out to my nephew.
You didn't make those excuses for Zach Wilson?
I don't know. I think Solomon has the raw talent, and I believe in his potential for the future. And I think he has the edge you need as a quarterback. He just cares, He gets it. So Solomon, shout out to you. Great performance.
Does he have aura?
Sunday.
Like Jaxon Dart?
He has great aura. He models himself after Bo Nix, actually. That's his hero. So.
That's his guy. That's right. You were and this is my favorite thing because it's just. Oh no! Didn't you say his dad's a big Broncos fan?
Yeah, his dad's a Broncos fan.
So there is a tie there. It's not like Jordan Ronan, who covers the Giants for ESPN. His son is obsessed with the Buffalo Bills and has been for the last. It's my favorite thing is he would Jordan used to post these videos on his Instagram. He'd be like, "All right, Brody, who do you think's going to win? the Patriots or the Bengals, and he'd go, the Bills, for every answer. Every answer was always the Bills. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. That's why I'm hoping, because my wife's from Philly, so she's a big Eagles fan. We said, like, you know, what is Brooke going to be? I was like, she's going to grow up to whatever she wants. I'm hoping she just finds some random team, and that ends up being her team, like maybe the Bengals or something like that, because, you know, my favorite color is orange, so maybe she likes that one. All right, Zach, anything else on your mind? Some non-football talk before we get into the New York Jets?
No, let's do it.
There we go, dude. There we go. All right, so since we had our last episode, you and I were on this pod, and you and I were talking about some of the changes that might be coming to the Jets, and we felt like you couldn't bring everybody back, and the Jets were not going to bring everybody back. With that said, I'm surprised at the number of coaches that they have let go, because since then, as has been broken and confirmed, the Jets are moving on from quarterbacks coach Charles London, defensive line coach Eric Washington, linebackers coach Aaron Curry, pass game coordinator Scott Turner, a slew of assistants in addition to these guys. They already have fired Steve Wilks, and we know that Chris Harris is not going to be back as the defensive coordinator after filling in for that interim defensive coordinator. That's a lot of coaches to be let go, and I'm on two sides of the fence with this one, and I'm curious your take on it, because on one side, you got to give Aaron Glenn credit, because what he did was he identified problems, and he didn't want to just keep trying to slam the square peg into the round hole. These were problems. He wanted to get it better, so he let go of all of these guys, and he moved on from them. My issue is that he handpicked all these groceries. These were all the guys that he went out there and got. These were his people. And if you go back and look at the way that he talked about Steve Wilks or Tanner Engstrand, who's staying on staff but in a demoted role and is not going to be calling plays next season, they're all guys that he was like, this is the guy we want. This is the guy we want. We're going to be great with these guys. These are the coaches. These are my assistants I wanted. And now he's firing them all. So, yeah, good. The Jets are moving on from him. But why should anybody have any faith that Glenn is the right person to replace these guys, or the people he replaces Tanner with when it comes to play calling, or Steve Wilks, or Curry, or Washington are going to be any better than the guys that he originally picked and brought with him because he boasted his chest and said these are the right guys for the job?
Yeah, I mean, it's alarming. Like, I think making this many sweeping changes on both sides of the ball, like, I have a hard time believing a coach coming off a 3-14 season that's going to turn around and do that is both going to, number one, be able to replace them with like really good candidates, and number two, that it's going to work out in the end. Because, you know what, why, like, as you're kind of alluding to, like, you know, he was so confident in this coaching staff a year ago, and he was pretty boastful about it, and now we're sitting here where we're at, and they're having a little bit of trouble finding like really intriguing defensive coordinator candidates with any level of experience outside of Wink. With the Tanner stuff, like, who would want to call plays for this offense right now? Like, I don't see the appeal, especially if this is a lame duck staff. So it's alarming. Before the pod, I dug into some staffs that kind of did a lot of turnover from year one to year two, and I'll list them out. And these are all examples of it working. And I'm going to tell you why the Jets don't really apply to these, because I'll tell you in a second. But so the Vikings in 2022, first year, Kevin O'Connell, they fired their defensive coordinator, Ed Donatel, replace him with Brian Flores. That obviously works out. Seahawks, last year, they fire offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, Charles London, who goes to the Jets, their offensive line coach, replace him with John Benton, who used to be with the Jets, and they go to Clint Kubiak and some other guys. That obviously worked out. The Bills in 2017, first year, Sean McDermott, fire Rick Dennison, replace him with Brian Daboll, as well as a couple other assistants. Those are all success stories. The difference, in the season where all those guys were fired, the Vikings went 13-4 in year one, the Seahawks went 10-7 in year one, and the Bills went 9-7 in year one. The Jets went 3-14. Yeah. They don't have a quarterback, and they have a roster that they need to completely fill with talent. So it is like, you can point to examples of, okay, a coach figured out his mistakes quickly. That's a good thing. I think it is, but like, there's not really any evidence that this is going to work out. I don't think there's been many situations where a coach was that bad in year one, had to change that much of his staff, and it worked out. So like, odds are I'm not saying it won't have happened, like crazy things happen, but odds are really, really stacked against Aaron Glenn right now. And, I think firing all these coaches only puts a bigger target on his back ultimately, because if these changes don't work, if the defense, if we go out there and week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, and they're still making the same mistakes they did last year, they're still not forcing turnovers, they're still one of the worst defenses in the NFL, Okay, well, that change didn't work. We look at the offensive coordinator. If you're switching Tanner Engstrand off of play calling, if this new guy doesn't make the fixes that Tanner needed to, and by the way, I actually thought Tanner did the best he could with what he had.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
And so if the next guy doesn't do better than Tanner last year, you're looking at a Mike LaFleur and Nate Hackett situation. So, you're just making it really hard on yourself here. And I know there's the side of it's what do you want them to do? They were really bad. Are you really going to criticize? You would have criticized them if they didn't fire those coaches. Well, yeah, maybe. And I'm not saying he even made the wrong decision doing all this stuff, but it's just really hard to come back from this. Is the broader point, I think.
I think for me, Zach, it's the Tanner one is the one to me that doesn't make sense. Steve Wilkes was horrendous, and that was a unit that we knew had talent. And that's what was so startling and difficult to understand when it came to the Jets' dysfunction of a year ago. We knew that Justin Fields was a lottery ticket. We knew they didn't have anything opposite Garrett Wilson. We knew that once teams weren't afraid of the pass, they were going to stuff the row or stack the box, and that was going to mitigate what Breece Hall was able to do. But defensively, that's what you felt they were going to be able to hang their hat on, because when the season started, they had Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams and Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald and Brandon Stevens was going to play well, and they added to the safety position with Cisco. They had Sherwood coming back. Quincy Williams was a former All-Pro. They had all of these pieces on defense, and we watched with Wilkes every single one of those guys regress from the players that they were underneath Robert Saleh and underneath Jeff Ulbrich. And that was alarming because, again, we saw these guys play well. Now they weren't. Why? And it was because, okay, the scheme or the coaching. And I know, look, I've talked to players and I've talked to people within that building. There were issues with Curry and there were issues with Washington. So I have absolutely no problem with the Jets moving on from those two assistant coaches and then Steve Wilkes as a whole to bring in somebody new. The one that doesn't make sense to me is Tanner, because when you watch the All-22, and I'm not saying I'm going through it like Connor Rogers would or Dan Orlovsky would or any of these guys where they're like, oh, this is what the quarterback's progressions are. Doesn't what I mean. When you hit pause on any computer or any TV when you were watching the All-22, right as the quarterback hit his back foot, you could see players who were open. You could see the route concepts which were freeing other guys. You could see the progressions. You could see what the Jets were trying to do. They just didn't have the quarterback that was able to do it. When it was Justin Fields out there, he wasn't pulling the trigger. Guys were there. He just wasn't throwing the ball for whatever reason. When Tyrod Taylor went in there, it started to get a little bit better, but he wasn't in there long enough. And when he was, you saw he just wasn't physically the player that was able to make the throws. And then Brady Cook was just in way over his head. I didn't see a person that should be replaced. And you're right, it does remind me somewhat of Mike LaFleur, because when you watched LaFleur, you said, wow, this offense works with Joe Flacco and Josh Johnson and Mike White and everybody. It stinks when Zach Wilson's in there. Maybe it's not the coach. With Tanner, it felt like maybe it's not the coach. It is Justin Fields. It's not everybody else. Get him the quarterback and watch him work. So for them to go, no, we're getting rid of him. You want to get rid of Charles London, fine, because the quarterback position was a disaster. You want to bring in somebody to help orchestrate it. But Tanner didn't seem like the problem. And I don't talk to Tanner. I don't have his number. Honestly, he's not a source or anything like that. I just watched this from an analysis point of view and didn't see the offensive coordinator as the issue, and now you're demoting him. And we can say, oh, he's not getting fired, he's still collecting the check, whatever. They're taking away his play calling. I've talked to people and seen the messages where they have talked directly to Tanner, and Tanner has said, I'm not going to be calling plays in 2026. So that is the expectation. So who are you going to go out there and get? And Frank Wright is the name, as we first reported. That was one that we've heard over and over and over again. I think that's probably going to end up getting done, and he's going to be the veteran that comes in here to call plays. But you're talking about a guy that didn't call plays in Philly, didn't work in Indianapolis, and now has been at Stanford the last couple of years. The same thing with Wink. You're replacing your defensive coordinator. You're bringing on Wink. A big reason why you're hiring Wink Martindale, and you didn't get the big name coordinators that are out there like the John Gannons or any of the Raheem Morrises or any of the big name defensive coordinating possibilities that are out there, is because people right now don't want to work for the Jets. This isn't considered a desirable destination.
Yeah, I mean, so we actually have a good question about from a listener that Sam put in the chat. She said, it's from @ChrisBernhard97. He said, hiring Wink and Frank Reich is basically hiring two Steve Wilkes. What's the point? What's the point is a good way to ask anything about this team, I would say. I would say neither of them are hired yet. So until they're hired, we can't say for sure that those are the guys.
Yeah.
So it's still possible that one or both of them is not in those jobs. But if, let's say, those are the guys that they hire, I do think they're different than Steve Wilkes, because I think Steve Wilkes had less history of success in his role. He was one and done at various stops. Like, I think obviously Frank has knocks against him and Wink has knocks against him, but they also have had success more recently, I would say, in the NFL doing their jobs. Like Frank Reich, yeah, he didn't call plays for the Eagles, and it didn't go great in Carolina when he was there. And his play calling in Indy wasn't like, I wouldn't say that went amazingly either, but he's a veteran coach that people respect, and he actually played with Aaron Glenn. I believe they crossed over one year.
Yeah,
and then Wink, as we've said, like he got some stuff out of the Giants. He was at his best in Baltimore, and there's been a level of success. And I think he's more creative in the way that he blitzes and the way that he calls plays than Steve Wilks. So it's not the same. Like I get why neither of those would excite the fan base though. Like you look at around the league, like these names that are getting hired and the names that were available, and Jets fans are like, why can't we get that guy? Well, the reality is this is the best option out of the ones available to the Jets, unfortunately. So,
well, we talked about it. Like the Jets reached out to Aaron Glenn has reached out, and you were the first one that reported this. Is that Aaron Glenn has reached out to a number of veteran, name-worthy, noteworthy guys who he could bring in here to call his plays. They've all said, I'm not interested. There are a number. I know at least two. You mentioned that there has been more, and it's now since been reported by others. There were a number of others that the Jets reached out to, interested in interviewing them for their defensive coordinator opening, and they said, no, we're good. Like when the Jets released those 8 candidates that they interviewed, there's a reason why Jim Leonhard and Wink Martindale were the only 2 guys who were noteworthy. It's because people don't necessarily want this position right now. There's a lot of concerns with it. Look at it from just the defensive point of view. There's no talent on that side of the ball right now. Will McDonald had sacks in 4 games. Jermaine Johnson had sacks in 3. There's a good chance one or both of them aren't on the roster within the next 2 years. You have issues with Quincy Williams. You have issues with Jamie Sherwood. The secondary is absent any form of talent. If that was the only issue with the Jets, the defensive side of the ball, you could say, look, don't worry about it. You can send free agent dollars, and you can spend big money. You can spend big free agent dollars. You can spend draft picks, and you can fix up the defense. But, flip on the other side of the ball, they've got just as many problems on offense. You need a number 2 receiver. You need a number 3 receiver. You need potentially an offensive guard. You need a quarterback. You don't know what's going to happen with Brees. You could need a running back. Like, there's a lot of pieces that this Jets team needs. You can make the argument they need 11 or 12 new starters, and of those 12 starters, 3 or 4 of them need to be legitimate game changers. That's a lot to find in one offseason. When you then look at their schedule, which is going to be absolutely brutally and a gauntlet, you look at this and say, there's a good chance the Jets only win 4 or 5 games next year. They might only win 3 games next year. And if that happens, everybody's fired. So if you're this big-name defensive coordinator, is that what you want to go hitch your wagon to? Is if you're a veteran offensive guy who wants to get yourself back into it, is that really what you want to hit when you don't even know who the quarterback's going to be and there's no rookie you're going to develop? You're kicking the can down the line to 2027, but you don't know if you're going to be the coach in 2027. Like, it's not a job that people want, which is why you have to go down the route that the Jets are going, which is the Wink Martindales, or trying to find the Frank Wright who's done it before, bring him into this building from Stanford. Like, you kind of have to think outside the box. And unfortunately, you're taking chances on guys that just want the job, aside from people who want to work for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue into another question we just got sent that I wanted to.
I appreciate you looking at this, by the way, because it's. Let's do this moving forward. That you'll be the question gatherer, because I struggle.
Well, I'm not gathering them, to be fair. They're getting sent to us in our.
The question reader from Sam, who is I sent out Sam Candle, our producer for this episode, who's gathering the questions.
Yeah, so it's from John Douglas 7247. He asked anything on Jim Leonhard. I think you mentioned him a little bit earlier. He's the name that Jets fans want because he's that up and coming name. He's the young coach who has like really great resume. If you look at what he did at Wisconsin and then being on the Denver staff for the last 2 years when they've been the best defense in the NFL. He was promoted to assistant head coach, former Jet player. Actually played for Aaron Glenn when he was in Cleveland. I don't get the impression that it's realistic still. I'd say if you wanted to have any sort of hope, it's that the Packers and Giants job both got filled by other people, and he was really tied to both of those. And now he's available for like a second interview if they really wanted it. But I still think that at the end of the day, if he doesn't get a DC job that he likes, I think he just stays in Denver, which is a pretty good spot to be, whether Vance Joseph is there or not. So I still lean towards him not being a realistic candidate for this team. I still think, Wink had his visit on Saturday at the facility, which I know you broke. Obviously, nothing's come to a conclusion yet in that regard. So, like, the job is still open and still it's filled. So I think if you want to have hope, it's that. But I still don't think Jim Leonhard will be the Jets defensive coordinator at the end of the day, even if things fall apart with Wink or whatever it is. Like, I know Jim O'Neill, I thought was the backup plan, and he just took a job he re-upped with the Lions, Dan Rossini reported. So he's off the table too. I think there was another one that took another job. So I think a few of these guys are off the table. Durante Jones is interviewed with like 5 different teams at this point, so he's in command. So that all leads me to say, like, I don't see Jim Leonhard being this DC. Maybe Durante Jones is somebody they circle back to if they really liked him. I don't know, but at the end of the day, Wink is still the favorite, and until he's named the defensive coordinator, like, anything's possible, I guess. But anyway, long way of saying I don't see Jim Leonhard happening.
Yeah, again, he's one of those candidates, Jim Leonhard, where he can be picky, and he knows that he's in a position where there's a good chance Vance Joseph is getting head coaching opportunities soon. I mean, he's still interviewing, and he's probably going to get more because that Broncos defense is loaded with talent. They're not going anywhere, and they're going to continue to be one of the best in the league. So if he gets a head coaching job next year, Jim Leonhard can take over the Broncos defense. And then in likely 1 or 2 years, he's getting a head coaching job of his own. With the Jets, there's a chance he takes that job and then immediately he's fired after a year, like just as being looped in with everybody. So again, it's the unfortunate position the Jets are in, and it's actually a direct opposite of where we thought they were a year ago, where when the head coaching opportunity was open when they moved on from Jeff Ulbrich and Robert Saleh, and when they moved on from Joe Douglas and the GM spot was open. I remember talking to people around the NFL, and this is not from the Jets. This is not PR spin that the Jets are feeding me to go talk about it online. I literally talked to head coaching candidates and general manager candidates that were like, no, that job's good. Like that's a legit, like, who is the GM with Mike Vrabel in Tennessee who ended up getting let go? What was his name? Do you remember?
The one that got fired, John Robinson?
Yeah, John Robinson. If you remember when John Robinson interviewed for the Jets job, I talked to somebody very close to him who had been speaking with him, and they'd say, look, John's sitting there being like, dude, this roster's good. Like you've got the defense, you need a quarterback, but you've got so much here. Like, we can really work with this. The way that viewpoint has totally shifted over the last 12 months underneath Aaron Glenn has now gotten people being like, I don't want that. And you actually mentioned it, Zach. It's a very, very similar situation to what the Jets found themselves in when they moved on from Mike LaFleur. And I remember talking to Robert Saleh about it, and one of the reasons he was like, what are we doing? And we knew it was forced on him. Like, we knew that Robert didn't want to move on from Mike, that it was forced on him. Was that he didn't know who he was going to get to replace him because he was viewed as a lame duck guy. They didn't have a quarterback. They're going to be stuck with Zach Wilson. What are they going to do? And they had to fall basically, backwards into Nathaniel Hackett. And the only reason they got Hackett was because they were going to get Rodgers. Like, it just was not a perfect situation. There was the alternate reality where it's Todd Downing and Mike LaFleur, but we knew that Woody wasn't going to want that to happen anyway. So it's just an unfortunate spot the Jets find themselves in. Real quick before we move on, there is an early vote here for Tweet of the Year. I had to confirm that this was actually real because KFC Barstool said, quote, I'm really happy for Sam Darnold. Then a couple spaces down, I hate the New York Jets. Scott Turner, who was one of the coaches that was just fired from the Jets, said, quote, me too. So that is absolutely still in there. And it's also a pretty good segue here, Zach, as we're going to transition into the Super Bowl that we have. But before we get to that, we want to thank everybody wherever you are listening, if that is Facebook, if that is X, if that is SNY.TV. Shout you guys out. Absolutely love you being along here for the ride. It's so much fun every single time, and I love the fact that we're doing this show throughout the off season. The best place to watch us, though, and we say this every single episode, it is on YouTube, and the reason why is because we have that live comment section running throughout the duration of this show. Sam Candle, who's producing this episode for us, is monitoring that comment section. She's sending the questions over to Zach, and we're going to keep taking those questions throughout the duration of the show. We've already taken a handful of them so far, so if you guys have other things you want to chime in on, whether that's Wink, whether that's Frank Wright, whether that's somebody else, Jim Leonhard, what they're going to do at quarterback, send those questions to us and we'll answer them throughout the show. Shout out to you guys there. Also, the cool thing about SNY's YouTube channel is you get to watch the Putback with Ian Begley and what's going on with the Knicks, whether they're going to trade Cat or not. All of the clips from Honda Sports Night, stuff from baseball season, which is coming up when pitchers and catchers report. And then obviously, like I said, JFD, which is an absolute blast. So thank you guys everywhere you're watching us for, but trot on over there to YouTube because it is the place to be. Super Bowl, dude. Patriots, Seahawks. How about that? Sam Darnold and versus the New England Patriots and Mike Vrabel. Your early thoughts here on the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I saw something. Mike Sando from The Athletic. He wrote something about the combined odds for this game are the highest in at least in the history that you can go back on in terms of Vegas odds for preseason Super Bowl teams. It's plus 4,500 or something crazy. If you had said the Patriots would be in the Super Bowl this year, even if you're really, really optimistic on Mike Vrabel and Drake May, which I think a lot of people were, they were kind of everybody's oh, they could be the next big jump team. The fact that they're in the Super Bowl is just wild. And Sam Darnold being here and Mike McDonald in his second year, these are both franchises that did it the right way, while the Patriots did it the wrong way for a couple of years. And the Seahawks have always been well run, but they made some questionable decisions over the years. Like the last year or two, these two organizations have been probably the best run in terms of finding the right guys, building the right culture, getting the right coach, getting the right quarterback, and it's a pretty cool matchup at the end of the day. I do think ultimately the Seahawks are a more talented and better team, but the Patriots just they find a way to win, and I know they get a lot of crap for their schedule and all that stuff, but you just play who's in front of you, and they've beaten everybody. So
I got to give a shout out to Tony Vegas, who, aside from you, Zach, with your Phillip Rivers tweet today, which was A++, I thought Tony Vegas had a pretty good tweet, and he went like mega viral. Like Tony, my boy TV, we're friends now, by the way. Everybody hates after I doxed him and all that stuff. Me and Tony, me and Mike Nash, like we're family. Like the group of us is absolutely family. His tweet, which was last I saw, had like almost 4 or 5 million. I think it had 4 million views, and that's when I looked. So I think it might be over 5 million now. Who knows? Quote, if Sam Darnold prevents the Patriots from winning a Super Bowl, I'd argue he was worth the number 3 pick in 2018 for the Jets. I thought that was great work for TV. Here's my thing with Sam, though. And we're going to hear it so much over the next 2 weeks, aside from the ghost comments, because that's going to be played over and over and over again because the ghost game was against the Patriots. I really don't give the Jets blame for letting him go. Like, I don't. I think that people are too much looking at this like what Sam has become and not what Sam was after those first couple years with the Jets. Like, there were absolutely moments where he looked good, but he was not a player that at that point you could commit to long term. Like, he wasn't. You weren't going to pick up his 5th-year option. You weren't going to extend him long term. He had done nothing to make you feel comfortable that he was going to be a legitimate bona fide franchise quarterback. He hadn't done that. There were moments, but he never looked that great. So what the Jets did, and we've talked about this so much, but just repeating it, is they decided to evaluate that draft class of the Trevor Lawrences and the Mac Jones and the Zach Wilsons and the Justin Fields, evaluate as if Sam Darnold was in that, and then Joe Douglas would ask himself, who would I draft if all of these prospects were there? Removing Trevor Lawrence because you knew he was going to go number 1 overall. After they evaluated everyone, they liked Zach Wilson's ability to play off script. They liked his quick throw accuracy. They believed that Zach had a higher ceiling, so they made the decision to draft Zach. They did not cut Sam Darnold. They got a pretty good return from the Carolina Panthers. And oh, by the way, the Panthers then, having Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield on the roster, moved on from both of those guys. The San Francisco 49ers had Sam for a year. They moved on from him. The Minnesota Vikings watched Sam Darnold be really, really, really damn good, and they moved on from him to get to the Seattle Seahawks. So in my opinion, the Panthers and the Vikings deserve far more blame and far more ridicule and far more jokes thrown at them at their expense for what happened with Sam than what the Jets did. Because also, in this alternate reality to it, I was talking to NYJ Matt and Mike about this the other day. In the alternate reality where the Jets decide to keep Sam Darnold for another year, that they trade that number 2 overall pick back, they recoup a bunch of assets, they get Devonta Smith, and they keep Sam Darnold, that's Sam's last year with the Jets. Like, he's going to walk in free agency. They're not going to give him a big-time contract. The Jets are only going to win 4, 5, or 6 games the next year with Sam Darnold because that roster was absolutely pitiful. Sam's going to walk. They're going to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jimmy Garoppolo is the next quarterback. Like, there's no world where Sam Darnold stays with the Jets 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and beyond and becomes this player. Like, it was never going to happen in New York. And if you want to blame why, Mike McCagnon's drafting is a big reason why. The Adam Gase hire is a big reason why. Joe Douglas's early tenure with the Jets is a big reason why. Like, that's what hurt the Jets. That's what pulled the Jets back. That's why Sam Darnold did not become the Sam Darnold he's become with the Vikings and the Seahawks that he was never with the Jets. That's why. And unfortunately, it's unfortunate for the Jets because this stat is incredible. He's the 2nd quarterback drafted by the Jets to start the Super Bowl, the first being Joe Namath. Like, that is absolutely absurd. But it's also understandable considering how bad those Jets teams were.
Yeah, I mean, look, like Sam Darnold is not where he is right now, like you said. So let's say he does come back for that. Let's say remove all the debate they had internally. Let's say he comes back. He's our quarterback in 2021. They have no offensive line. They have a first-year play caller, and they have a very limited amount of weapons on that team. They had a bad running game, and their best receiver was Elijah Moore, who didn't come on until the end of the season. So he probably has a bad season that year, hits free agency, and maybe is bumbling around the league or something like that. Whereas what happened is he gets traded to the Panthers. It doesn't work out there for 2 years. He gets to spend a year as a backup learning under Kyle Shanahan, which is crucial to his development. And then he goes into QB school with Kevin O'Connell, which is crucial to his development. And so now he is where he is, which is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Like
Kubiak's a stud too.
So, like, whatever you want to say, like, yeah, the Jets could have done a better job building him. He went to the only 2 coaching staffs. Maybe Sean McVay would be a third that would have gotten the most out of him, because there's not a lot of coaches that have that ability to, like, shuffle through your behind the scenes. Like, he had to be a backup for a year to get where he is now. So, I think I say this all the time. It's easy to go LOL Jets, and there's a lot of stuff you can make fun of them about, but I think everybody's missing the mark on this one, because like, you don't even hear Sam Darnold talking crap about the Jets. I know, I mean, it was a bad situation. Adam Gase and him, wasn't ultimately a great pairing. It wasn't a great supporting staff, all that stuff, supporting cast. But like, you could make fun. We'll get into the Vrabel stuff. You can make fun of something with the Vrabel thing, because they could have hired him the year before and they didn't, which I'll get into. But like with Darnold, like, I just think it's unfair to like keep making fun of the Jets for this thing, and everybody, all the national analysts who just think, I wrote something. I think it's going to come out either this week or next week. It's like the Jets are often the third team playing in the Super Bowl because everybody just can't get their name out of their mouth, because it just somehow the Jets become a topic. It's Mecole Hardman getting the touchdown. It's Mekhi Becton, having a renaissance in Philly last year. It's all this stuff. All these guys who came through the Jets and they make it to the Super Bowl. And then everybody wants to talk about the Jets. If he didn't leave the Jets, he wouldn't be here now. It's just like, I get it. Like, I cover the Jets, and sometimes you have to write about former Jets and all that stuff. But this Darnold thing in particular, and I was texting with Kaz, Brian Costello too, because he goes to the Super Bowl every year. I'm not going this time. I'm like, Sam's going to be peppered with a million.
Are you coming over then? Are you coming over for the Super Bowl?
I'm still working that part out.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm TBD on that invite. But Darnold's going to be peppered with questions all week about the Jets, and he'll handle it well because he's really nice and he's really professional. I don't think he's going to say anything bad about them. He made a joke about the ghost thing. Somebody brought it up in his post-game press conference, and he's like, "Well, I had forgotten about it until you brought it up." so I feel bad for Sam, because he's going to have to confront that all week. But the ones I feel most bad about are Jets fans who just have to deal with getting made fun of all the time for things that, like I said, there's plenty you can make fun of the Jets about. They haven't made the playoffs in 15 years. They haven't had an actual like good quarterback, maybe like Chad Pennington, for a couple of years since Joe Namath. Like, they've been the biggest dysfunctional mess in the league for a long time. There's plenty to make fun of them about. And I've done it, and I've written about it. But Sam Darnold is not like the thing. Like, there's other things to make fun of them about.
Well, here's one to make fun of.
For example.
I'm going to say the same thing right now.
Them not drafting JSN.
That's what I was going to say. Look at us. We're saying. Dude, this is the one. I literally just tweeted. I don't know if you saw my tweet. That was literally what I was about to say to you. Like, you want to rip the Jets for something? It's not Sam. That's not what you rip them for. If you want to rip them for something, it's passing on JSN in the draft. Like that decision in the moment. I will never forget it, because I have argued with Robert Saleh 27,000 times over this, to the point where I texted him last night while I was watching JSN go off for 10 and 152 yards and whatever, and being like, hey, once again, should have drafted JSN. It was the most obvious thing in the world, because, again, I remember saying this, and I talked to Ulbrich about this, and I talked to Saleh about this, and I talked to Joe Douglas about this, and I even talked to Whitecotton, who was the Jets defensive line coach, about this. Like, I understand that you guys liked Will McDonald. Absolutely. And when you were looking down the future or into the future, you could see a time where you were going to need him, because Carl Lawson was very clearly not the same player. The Achilles took its toll. The back took its toll. You knew you were probably going to lose Bryce Huff in free agency. So what they saw in Will was a supercharged, 10 times more athletic version of Bryce Huff. And they felt that having Aaron Rodgers and having Garrett Wilson and having all these people, they were going to have a lot of leads, so they were going to have a lot of opportunities to rush the passer. So while Will was limited in what he could do in totality, the one thing he could do really well was rush the passer. So put him out there, and this guy's going to be a force on defense. Okay, I understand it, but guess what? The best player that you could have used in that moment was JSN, because we all knew at that time they needed a receiver opposite Garrett Wilson. We knew that JSN was the best receiver in the class. We knew that he and Garrett Wilson loved each other, and it was an opportunity to get another playmaker on the field for Aaron Rodgers, someone to take attention away from Garrett Wilson, and he was going to be an immediate contributor as a wide receiver 2, 1B to Wilson's 1A in that locker room. Immediately he was going to take off. But the Jets had questions and concerns with him. There was certainly some other stuff around the draft circling with JSN. He has exceeded erased all of those negativities. He's exceeded all expectations, and he's legitimately one of the 2 or 3 best receivers in the entire NFL anymore. That was the pick that in the moment everyone was like, man, this isn't hindsight at all, because I was literally on SNY's Jets draft show. Like, literally on NFL's Jets draft show, and I was like, hey, look, just talked to 3 sources. This is why they told me they drafted Will McDonald. I'm going to be honest with you. They made the decisions. I don't agree with them. They should have taken JSN, and here's why. Like, it was in the moment we all said they should have taken him, and they didn't, and now look what he's become. Like, the Jets offensively are in such a different spot, I would say, the last 3 years had they had taken him. Like, a lot of those questions we're talking about, like, man, they need this, man, they need to score. Like, they don't need to trade the draft picks for Devontae Adams if they have Smith. They don't need to worry right now about drafting a receiver if they have JSN. Like, they have all of these things. It's just a bummer they didn't take him. That's what you want to blame for. Don't blame him for Sam. They blame him for not drafting JSN. That's what they screwed up on.
Yeah, I mean, not only did they screw up not drafting him, but they went out of their way leading up to that pick and after the fact to be like they didn't even consider him. Like that was the crazy part about all that. Like the Will McDonald pick, he turned out to be like a solid NFL player. Like it wasn't like a complete disaster, which give Will credit. But like at the time, they didn't need defensive ends either, and they needed wide receivers. So fans were like really as JSN is dropping. Like I remember being like, oh, JSN's still on the board. I don't know, and as it turned out, like they didn't even like value JSN and think he was going to be particularly good in the NFL, and they saw him as like a slot receiver. So
he's so good, dude.
It's kind of the same. It feels similar to the mistake people made when they didn't draft Justin Jefferson. It was like, oh, he's just a slot receiver in the NFL, and then he turns out to be like the best receiver we've seen in a long time. So I didn't think JSN would be this good. To be fair, like he is insane. But yeah, I mean that's if you want to make fun of the Jets, make fun of that. The fact that they didn't have him highly ranked, and receivers they have had highly ranked, like Malachi Corley, absolutely were disasters. So their evaluation for wide receivers outside of Garrett was not particularly good in the Joe Douglas era, I would say.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I think Elijah can still do it. Real quick, we can talk about this for a little bit here, Zach. Team the Jets are going to face is the Patriots. We really haven't spoken too much. Hey, I feel like we've talked a lot about the Seahawks right now, but the Patriots are an interesting team. I've seen it. Like I think it's probably Jet fans just trying to like compartmentalize what's going on to just be like, yeah, the Patriots are, the Jets have been rebuilt. The Jets haven't made the playoffs in 15 years, and it's probably going to be 16 after next year. And during those 16 years, the Patriots were a dynasty, a rebuild that failed, a rebuild that worked, and now they're back in the Super Bowl. Like it's been remarkable what they've been able to do. But the Jet fan is I've seen it all over my mentions where it's been like the Patriots stink. The road to the Super Bowl is so easy. It could I think we're getting too caught up right now. Like, don't get me wrong, the Jarrett Stidham, that was the easiest conference championship situation that they could have possibly found themselves in. But Justin Herbert was coming off a damn good season for the Chargers, and the Patriots defense made him look terrible. C.J. Stroud had a really good season for the Texans, and the Patriots defense made him look terrible. Like, the Patriots do you want to say the easy regular season? Absolutely, but they also still had to go through the Patriots twice. Like, they still had to do these things and win these games and win these close. With a quarterback who's only in his second year, that still carries weight. Like, that still means something. And then in the playoffs, they made it. Yeah, Herbert looked terrible and Stroud looked terrible, but the Patriots made him look terrible. Like, I don't think their road to the Super Bowl once in the playoffs was as easy as people were talking about. I mean, the Chargers, too, they're a damn good coach team. Like, Harbaugh's a really good coach, Jim Harbaugh. Like, so I think that carries weight, too. So I think they're getting ripped a little bit more. I do think the Seahawks should win the Super Bowl. They'll probably end up being my pick, but when it's Mike Vrabel and that Patriots defense, I don't think you could just count out New England. Like, I really don't think you could do that.
I mean, not only in terms of the path, like the 3 defenses they faced were among the best in the NFL. The Chargers maybe were inconsistent, but they were a really good defense. The Texans, you could argue, were the best, if not a top 3 defense, and the Broncos were the best or a top 2 defense. So, like, and I know the Patriots offense, like, I think there's a stat that like their EPA was as bad as the Jets EPA in the season offensively, but like they pulled out wins against really good defenses in tough conditions. I mean, the weather in that Pats Broncos game was pretty insane by the fourth quarter, especially the way it progressed. Or regressed, I should say. So yeah, I think it's gonna. They're the Patriots too, so nobody's gonna give them grace because they're the Patriots at the end of the day. So if it was another team that went through this path, I don't know if they're getting as much crap for it. But I think because it's the Patriots, everybody's like, oh, it doesn't count. This is the best. This is the easiest path any team's ever had. Teams have had easy paths to the Super Bowl before. The Eagles that the year they lost to the Chiefs, they played the 49ers with like their third string quarterback because of injuries. And
then lost
Brock Purdy was
Purdy got hurt. Josh Johnson had to go, and Josh Johnson got hurt, and Purdy had to go back in when he couldn't throw a pass.
Yeah. So like it happens. Like all you could do is play who's in front of you. So like and maybe if I was still a fan of a team, like maybe I would feel the same way fans do about that. And I used to hate the Patriots when I was a kid. Don't really care anymore. But yeah. So I don't know. I think it's impressive. Like you said, I don't think they're going to win it ultimately, but they're in the big game, so anything's possible. And you never know if Darnold's going to revert back to ghost Sam Darnold against a really good defense. So I'm very curious to see how that game goes. But yeah, I mean, this is impressive, man. It's as you alluded to, it's just torture and adds insult to every injury that it's a coach that the Jets wanted really badly.
Yes.
With a quarterback that they kind of gave to them by beating the Patriots at the end of the Bill Belichick's last season. And to what I was alluding to earlier, like if you want to beat up the Jets about something, it's not that they didn't get Vrabel this offseason, because while you
made this point, I really like this. Good point.
Which is why they were infatuated with him, and they had a great meeting with him when he visited. And I think he walked out of there feeling good about the Jets, like the people he spoke to, and the idea of running things. And then a couple days later, Gerard Mayo was fired, and that's his dream job, so he was going to take it. He might have had a feeling that was coming anyway. I don't think he did during the season. I don't think he knew that the Patriots job was going to open up during the season. Anyway, 2024. The Titans fire him, which, by the way, has aged very poorly. They deserve more.
Yeah.
Make fun of way more than the Jets do about Vrabel, for sure. But 2024, Saleh is clearly on the hot seat because he gets fired 5 weeks into the season. Mike Vrabel gets passed over for the Chargers job. He's the runner-up. They tell him he's the runner-up, but they wanted Jim Harbaugh, homegrown guy. He interviews with the Falcons. The Falcons say we were going to hire Raheem Morris anyway. And he interviews with the Panthers, which is a job he didn't actually want. So those are the 3 jobs he interviewed for. The Jets decided to keep Robert Saleh, even though they were going to get rid of him clearly anyway at some point, because you don't fire a guy 5 weeks into the season if you didn't think about firing him in the offseason. So if you fire Robert Saleh at that point, like, sure, maybe it's not 100% guaranteed he takes that job, but Vrabel wanted a coach. He did not like that he had to take a year off. He did not like that he had to be sitting in a bar with me in the middle of the NFL season. Like his preference wasn't to be hanging out with Zach Rosenblatt in a dive bar in Nashville. He preferred to coach. And so the Jets would have offered him the opportunity to be their head coach. And so we might be sitting here right now with Vrabel instead of, Aaron Glenn, who has a lot of question marks. So it's just like one of those, crossroads moments in Jets history that will be hard to over. It's not quite the Bill Belichick taking the job and then resigning a day later and then going to the Patriots, but it's still tough because, they should have fired Saleh that offseason ultimately. Clear that was a marriage that they didn't want to make work, and so you would have had a chance at Vrabel, and instead here you are. So,
for those that didn't read it, I highly recommend it. Do a search for Mike Vrabel and Zach Rosenblatt's name on Google, and you'll see the story that Zack wrote on Mike before he got hired for the Patriots job. I think you ran it. It was incredible. Zack spent a ton of time with him during his 1 year off from the NFL and wrote a tremendous story on The Athletic. So I highly, highly, highly recommend you read it. If Jet fans, you can stomach reading that, knowing that you probably could have had him. But it's crazy you brought that up, Zack, because I do forget often. Like, I know that Vrabel took a year off. Everyone knows that. He was consulting for the Browns, but I forget that he interviewed for other jobs, and people were like, "No, I don't know how you don't." Like, the minute he was fired, I remember talking to somebody when the rumor started circulating he might be let go, and someone was like, "No way is he going to let go," and he got let go. It's the guy. The guy did so much with so little in Tennessee in the face of inconsistent ownership at best. Like all of these little things that were out there, he still managed to find success. And I don't know how all of these teams that talked to him at all didn't hire him, or from the Jets' perspective, fire to hire. But I guess in their thought process there was some concerns like, oh, is Aaron going to just retire if they fire Robert? And they wanted to let Robert see it through and all that stuff. But again, if you could have gotten Mike Vrabel, you kind of want to do it. Real quick on these two, Zack, and then we're going to get into a little fun segment here to close out the show with 2 quick ones. What's your thought on weather games? Because I saw this tweet from people like Sean Morash, I like him, but like this one I hated, was he made a comment about everyone should be in domes or whatever. I love snow games. I love rain games. I think football is meant to be played in the elements. I like that stuff, and I hated that people were like, oh, this is why it shouldn't be out there. It's like, no, dude, like play in the snow. Like, I like that. I think it's fun.
Oh yeah.
Are you pro snow or pro dome? What are you, snow or dome?
I'm pro snow for someone as a watcher. I'm anti snow in life, and if I was like at the game, maybe. But like as a fan, I probably wouldn't want to be in the snow. But yeah, I think it's cool. It's old school football, and then when you see like it's really hard to throw the ball in those situations. So when you see a guy complete an impressive pass, it's like the coolest thing. And running the ball, you couldn't even see the numbers in this Patriots game. It was to the point where they had like the graphic of the numbers, and so guys were like disappearing into the numbers because it was not real, and like they blended in because of their white uniforms or whatever. So it adds a really fun element. It's like old school, and a lot of the most classic NFL games like have names like the Snow Bowl, the Fog Bowl, things like that. So I love it. It's old school. And you just really get down to like grinding it out, good defense, good running, and whoever like is, able to make a field goal at the end of the day wins the game. And Sean Payton not kicking a field goal in the first quarter wound up losing the game for them. So you got to take the points sometimes, man.
All right. I agree with you. This is the last one. Patriots, Seahawks. Who do you think wins? Go.
Seahawks.
Yeah, me too. I just think they're a better team. Although, like I said, Vrabel's the X factor, and that Patriot defense. Like that Patriots defense is really good, and if they can confuse Sam and they can make Sam make some mistakes, that's when they've got a chance. But Drake May's been funky in the playoffs, man. You can tell he's young and inexperienced, and I do worry about him in the big game. All right, we're going to do a new segment. Sam threw this one on the rundown. I actually kind of like it. It's called Defend the Tweets. We're going to look at some of our tweets that we've sent out over the last couple of weeks, just on takes around the NFL, and talk about it a little bit, just to extend on them. We're going to start with yours, Zach, and it is that, quote, would bet Aaron Rodgers comes back now too. He wanted a reunion with Mike McCarthy. I can add to this one real quick, and then I'll let you go. I remember talking to Aaron in the locker room during his last season with the Jets, where it became clear he wasn't going to come back and things like that. And I was talking to him, I was like, do you still want to play? He goes, yeah, I don't think I'm done. I'm still going to think about it a little bit. I'm still going to move on, and I'm not ready to say quit. I still want to take my time and evaluate it. But if I want to play, I'm going to see what options I have. And I was like, oh, like, where do you think? Pittsburgh, this place, that. Where do you think? He goes, well, I'd actually probably like to go wherever Mike McCarthy ends up, because at that point you knew McCarthy was going to get fired from the Cowboys. And I'm like, really? Like, you want to re-up with McCarthy? I thought things ended pretty poorly with you and McCarthy in Green Bay, but whatever. Flash forward now a couple of years, and McCarthy's now the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, where Aaron Rodgers just played the year. Go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add on that, but I'd say even publicly, like, while I think everybody remembers how poorly it went at the end, I think Aaron Rodgers, as time went on, realized that he had a lot more freedom to do what he wanted at like the line of scrimmage, and like basically run the offense his way when Mike McCarthy was a coach, and it's why he liked Nathaniel Hackett. Whereas with LaFleur and even in Pittsburgh with Arthur Smith, like he was not really running the offense as much as he used to. So I think the idea, Aaron Rodgers likes having control, and so I think that's like I think they like each other on a personal level. I don't know that. I think Rodgers liked that he could walk all over him maybe a little bit. And I think that's why I think this will be something that, like, they love Rodgers in that Steelers locker room. Everybody talks about it. And so as soon as they hired McCarthy, like, maybe it wasn't the reason they hired him, but I imagine it was at least in the conversation. So if Rodgers is not retiring, I think he's back with the Steelers.
Here's one for me on the Eagles offensive coordinator search, which has been a total and complete disaster. They have a quarterback where reports are surfacing over how much teammates like him, questioning how much teammates like him. A wide receiver doing everything he can to get out, just canned their offensive coordinator after 1 year and a divisional title, and playing maybe the toughest media market. Like, I agree that the Eagles are a ridiculously talented football team. They are. I think they're one of the 2 or 3, if not number 1, most talented teams in the entire NFL. But that offensive coordinator job is not desirable, and we're seeing that proven over the last couple of weeks, where Brian Daboll is basically saying, I don't want the gig. Mike McDaniel saying, I don't want the gig. They're shuffling through now and interviewing guys, Zach, that I have never even heard of. I don't know who these people are, and they're probably going to be the offensive coordinator of the Eagles. And when you see it, you can start to undersee why. And in Philadelphia, there's like blinders from a lot of people on what Jalen Hurts is. He's a ridiculous athlete. He can play quarterback, but he is limited in what he can do as a thrower of the football. The arm is not elite. He can't go over the middle. You need to design an offense entirely around him. He doesn't fit within everybody's entire offense. And oh, by the way, this is not a situation where, say, Daboll, for example, he goes to Tennessee with Robert Saleh. If Daboll gets the Titans to the playoffs, there's a good chance, and Cam Ward looks like a legitimate franchise quarterback, there's a good chance Brian Daboll is going to be a head coach somewhere. If they're just good, or Cam Ward just plays well and the Titans lose a bunch of games, Daboll's still going to get his flowers. if you go to Philadelphia, as we just saw with Kevin Patullo, you can have an offense that does enough to have you win the NFC East and get into the playoffs, and you're still going to have eggs and rocks thrown at your house by this fan base. You're going to be dragged through the mud by media people and by radio people. Like, it's not a job that's for everybody. And when there are so many other opportunities open because of the number of coaches that have been fired and thus offensive coordinator vacancies opening, not only with those 9 teams, but the other teams like the Jets or anyone else who's just looking to switch their offensive coordinator up, I think the Eagles are not an overly desirable destination. I just don't think it's a place where a lot of people want to work. Someone's going to take the job, obviously, and it could be a really good decision for them. But then also you throw in the fact that you're being strapped with Stoutland, who calls the run plays. I don't know if it's not as great as was originally perceived going into this year, and you're starting to see why. Where here we are on January 26th, and no one still has that job.
I mean, look, the OCs for Nick Sirianni have either been like one and dones because they went and got a head coaching job, or because they got fired after a year. So you had Brian Johnson was fired. He replaced Shane Steichen and was fired after a year. Replaced him with Kellen Moore. He leaves for a head coaching job. Replace him with Kevin Patullo. He gets demoted or fired, and now they're trying to find someone. And so you have people who have not even called plays before removing themselves from the conversation. I saw Declan Doyle, the OC for the Bears, who's probably going to get a job at some point, if not a head coach, at least an OC job. He declined he removed himself from the competition. Bobby Slowick took a job with the Dolphins, being their OC. Daboll is probably going to choose either the Titans or if he gets one of these head coaching jobs. Mike McDaniel went to LA and didn't really consider the Eagles job. Like, if you had said that in the middle of the season, like, they're going to need a new OC in the offseason, you're like, okay, that's going to be like a number one job. Well, no. As you said, all the points you laid out, plus you have A.J. Brown, kind of a diva, caused a lot of headlines, not very happy when he doesn't get the ball. Saquon is going to be 30 soon. Lane Johnson's probably not going to be playing much longer. So, yeah, it's crazy to think about that's a team that's going to make the playoffs every year, and you still are like, do I want to risk being the most hated man in Philadelphia for a year, or do I want to take a bet on myself and be like, okay, I could be a head coach next year? Like, it's a real, like, you got to make a good pro and con list for that job.
You absolutely, and it's not like I said, it's not for the faint of heart. 2 more here, Zach. One from you. You ran a poll. Who the Jets should pick number 2, and it resulted in 47% for Reese. I don't hate that. I mean, whether it's Ruben Bain, I like the opportunity there. Reese, I like the opportunity there. Bain, I just like it a little bit more because I think he fits better with what the Jets are going to do. Like, if you're going to keep Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald, Bain's the guy that can kick inside as a 3-tech and rushes that Justin Tuck, Brandon Graham type player, while you keep Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald on the other side. And I think you can create a ferocious front. But if they went with Reese, I wouldn't hate that.
Bain has really grown on me in the last couple weeks. I still lean Reese just because at Ohio State they used him more as an off-ball linebacker, whereas I think in the NFL he's going to be primarily an edge rusher, which is kind of the journey you saw for Micah Parsons. And so if you see him as a Micah Parsons level talent, then I'm really, really intrigued by him and the versatility and coming from that program. Like, you can't go wrong drafting somebody from Ohio State generally these days. So. But yeah, I'd say Bain or Reese are my favorites in the clubhouse, and I do think Bailey is also kind of a freak too. So it's a good spot to be in if they stay at 2. If you're trying to find like a blue chip guy on defense.
This is the last one, and this is like the kids say the darndest things type thing. So I'm downstairs. This literally happened today. I'm downstairs this afternoon, and I'm making my daughter lunch because Bree's working today. So she's a nurse, so she had to go into work today at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And so I'm taking care of lunch for my daughter. We're doing grilled cheese sandwiches with tomato soup. And as I'm making it, plating it, getting it on the table for us to sit down and eat it, she comes up to me, gives me a big hug, gives me a kiss. And I'm like, oh, thank you, sweetie. I love you. And she looks at me and she goes, Daddy, you look like Shrek. And I'm like, what did you say? She goes, you look like Shrek. And I'm like, thanks, honey. Now, my daughter is obsessed. Like, we're going through the phases right now where we went through Frozen and Moana. We're still on the Frozen kick and all that stuff. But I think in the saying of, like, just changing the movie that she loves to watch, like, we try to limit our screen time. We usually do in the morning and in the after. Like, when she first wakes up, she can watch TV for a half hour. And then, like, usually randomly right before nap time, we'll watch a little bit of a movie. She's obsessed with Shrek. Like, she loves Shrek. She loves Donkey. She loves Fiona. She loves all this stuff. And the baby Shreks that are in Shrek Forever After All or whatever it is. But yeah, I didn't expect to have the Shrek one come right at me. So do you think I look like Shrek? I don't think I look like Shrek.
I mean, I'm going to go with it. I love it. I mean, I think it's something that you will not enjoy being called, and so I think I will enjoy bringing that back to you as a big green ogre that you are.
Yeah.
And if I'm the donkey in this comparison, I'm very happy with that too. So.
Yeah, Brooke's been taking shots at both of us because she had you as
I
that
know.
like weird bald guy with like the random little
So
scruff.
maybe she called you Shrek for me, and I appreciate that. Maybe we're back on track.
Even it up. Even it up. Big fan of the pod. All right, let's swing it around the league here right now, Zach. I can't remember if Saleh was hired when we did this show last week, but Robert Saleh is officially the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Mike McDaniel, as of today, is officially the Chargers offensive coordinator. Phillip Rivers interviewed for the Bills head coaching job, but just withdrew. He's not doing that, which is a smart move. Joe Douglas had a really good meeting with the Atlanta Falcons, I heard, and Mike LaFleur is in Arizona right now for his second interview. From my understanding and everything that I've heard, he's the favorite for that Cardinals job right now, which would be awesome to see Mike get that gig. I think he'd do a really, really good job with it. Anything you want to add in real quick about stuff you're hearing around the NFL or just little tidbits, nuggets, anything? I think I'm throwing you. I might be throwing you on the spot right now.
No, you're not. This has been a fascinating head coaching cycle. The Browns job is kind of like a worse version of the Eagles OC job where nobody seems to
I
want
have
it.
nothing on the Browns, so if you have anything to add.
Well, I would say I think Nate Scheelhaase is going to be their coach, is my prediction. And I think they'd keep Jim Schwartz as the DC. And Scheelhaase is interesting. Like, you're really just plucking from the McVay tree, but he has never called plays. Like, he's helped with some like game planning stuff. So you're a young guy who's been in the NFL coaching for like 2 years. That's a really big jump. So they must really believe in him, or they didn't have any better options. I don't know. But he gets to coach a Pro Bowl quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. So if he gets the job,
dude, what he's got to back out. Like, Shedeur can't go to the Pro Bowl. You can't do that. Like, that is ridiculous.
That's like Tyler Huntley a few years ago when he made it.
Oh, that's bad, man. That is so bad. By the way, Sam just shot me a message here. This is from Christian Turner 2112 on YouTube. Zach, he said you're the gingerbread man. So you're now in the Shrek universe as well with me. I'm Shrek according to Brooke, and you're the gingerbread man. So we'll get rolling on that. We'll have to have you recite that like the Muffin Man line for the first.
This is a pretty funny screen right now. It says Zach equals gingerbread man. I think
I like
screenshot this for my future reference. Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. We'll get that one going. Last one here, and then we're going to wrap up the show. So this is completely non-football related, as is the Shrek conversation as well. I had such a brain fart, and I got to try to fix it up. So this is just me causing issues. I don't usually shop for myself. I don't. Like, I buy stuff I have to wear for work. So like ties or blazers, because I have like the websites that I like to go to, and I have a tailor, and then the person will go and basically tear the whole thing apart and rebuild it for how I want. So at the end of the day, it's basically like a custom, because I've made some friends. But I don't like this sweatshirt I've had since I was in college. Like, I really don't buy that much. And when I do, I buy it in bulk, and then I'm over. So I was talking to Bree, and I decided that I was going to get myself some new Lululemons, because I had 3 pairs from like 4 or 5 years ago. One is now bleached. One ripped when I fell into the stingray tank with Brooke at the Camden Aquarium. And then I have my other pair that I wear all the time. So I was like, I wear these all the time. They were like, they're not cheap, like, for joggers. They're like $100 and something bucks. So like, I don't usually buy them. And then like, I had them for a while. I'm just going to upgrade and get some new ones. So Lululemon changed the name of all of the joggers from the last time I had them. They still have the ABCs, which I got, but then they had other ones that were not like just the soft, sweatpant, nice joggers that I wore preferred. They don't have that name anymore. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just buy a bunch, because I also don't know what size I am anymore. Am I a medium like I used to be, or a large, which I probably am after having a kid and getting my dad bod on? Like, I didn't know what size I was. So I just decided to buy a bunch. I bought mediums, I bought larges, I bought different colors, I bought them in all the different styles just to see which is the sweatpant I like and move on. At the end of the day, I spent $1,066 at Lululemon with the expectation that I was going to return $700 of it. Like, I was going to return $700 Lululemons once I figured out what I like, which I've done before with like jeans and stuff when you're trying to figure out what works. Zach, Lululemon has this thing on their website called Final Sale. And as someone who doesn't usually shop for himself, I thought that Final Sale meant this is the lowest price it's going to be. This is the last sale. So I bought like half of this $1,000 worth of Lululemons. Again, not a flex. I was going to return it all. Half of it was going to be, or half of it was listed as this Final Sale thing. So All of the Lululemons came. They're literally sitting next to me right now. 3 of them fit really, really well, and I'm going to keep them. And the other 7 I went to return, only to find out that 5 of the 7 cannot be returned because they are these things called final sales. So I currently, when the snow melts a little bit and I can leave the house, I need to go to Lululemon and beg the associate to return $500 of Lululemons that are on final sale that I cannot wear because I am not a medium, or in one case, it was gray online, but it actually came and it's purple. So I am an idiot.
My God, that was way too many words just to say that you've lived under a rock your whole life. Like I could have cut you off a lot earlier. Just like you didn't know that's what final sale meant. Like, what are we doing? I would say this is not the first time in my life where you've said something where I'm like, how have you lived in the world? I remember there was one time you think you were having ramen on your own for the first time, and you called me and you're like, Zach, how do I eat ramen?
Did do that? Yep.
I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Order ramen. I think it was order ramen. Bree and I went to a ramen place like for the first time ever, and I was like, I don't know what these words are. Can you just help me pick one? Yeah, and then I didn't know how to eat it. Yeah, because then it was, what was it? It was just soup on the top.
No, it's because there's a spoon and there's chopsticks, and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. What do I do here?
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, the thing is, I always try.
The other Connor has not gotten out much would be watching him trying to operate the New York subway system.
Oh, that's bad.
One time we were meeting up to go see a Mets game, Mets-Phillies. Andy Vasquez, other Jets writer, laid out the directions for Connor. He said, Connor, you're gonna get on this subway. You're gonna get off here, and then you're gonna go here, and you're gonna transfer to this train, and then you're gonna get off there, and you'll be at the bar. Connor,
I don't do transfers.
Connor goes in like the opposite direction and somehow comes from like the opposite way, and we're like, how did you pull that off?
Yeah.
So Connor, so when he says things like final sale, like who knew? Like it's par for the course, guys.
It was bad. This one's a bad one. Now I did a bunch of Reddit searches, and they did say like if I go to the Lululemon in store and explain to them what happened, like usually the associate at the store can manually override and do the return. And I just have to beg them and be like, dude, look, I'm keeping 3 of them. Like it's not like I'm returning all of them. I'm keeping 3. Like I've got actually a pair on right now. Like I'm keeping 3, and Bree actually wants to get me a black one, like a black pair of joggers. So I was like, I'm going to buy one more. I don't want these other 5. Like, I don't need them. They don't fit. They're not the color I want. They're not the style. So I really got to cross my fingers and hope that I can get this done. We did get this. This one's actually, this is Sam sending this question, which I like. Last one. Give one final sale Jet that you have to keep him for throughout this offseason and the rest of his career. The one Jet that he's going to retire a Jet because he's final sale. You bought him and he's done. You got to keep him forever. Mine is Garrett Wilson. I would not let Garrett Wilson go. I think he's a stud. I think he embraces the culture. I think he's great in the locker room. I think Garrett's the one you keep.
Well, in terms of all-time Jets, I would have said Chris Streveler, but in terms of current ones, I'll say Armand Membu if I'm saying a different one because he looks like an absolute stud. So let's keep him around.
That's good. I like it. That's going to do it for this offseason episode. You think, well, you know what, dude? Like, it's crazy. So the Jets gave us the firings before this episode. By the time we do the next one, Frank is probably going to be hired, and the defensive coordinator, whether it's Wink or Jim, both of us, from what we understand, think it's going to be Wink. But we'll have the defensive coordinator and new offensive play caller to talk about. So we're going to have another episode of filling it in, and then we'll be transitioning to the next one would then be after the Super Bowl. And then we'll be closing on the Combine. So how about that, dude? Off-season hasn't really been too much of an off-season. We've had a lot of content. Shout out Jets.
Good. We love it. We love a Jets off season.
We do. All right, so like I said, that's going to do it for us. If you guys want more of Zack, you can find him on Jets Flight Plan, part of the Badlands Network. Him and Tim McMaster do a great job on that show. Make sure you guys listen there. For me, I'm going to be all over Honda Sports Night throughout the offseason, so you guys can find me there along with here on JF Day, which we will be back with you guys next week. We stress this every single time. We appreciate everywhere where you guys watch us, whether that's X, SNY.TV, but the place to be is YouTube, and that is because you get a chance to have all of the access to the complete library of SNY's digital content. So that's Jets Mailbag, that is Jets Final Drive, that is the Putback with Ian Begley, that's all of our baseball content and clips from Honda Sports Night, along with Jets pre- and post-game. And like I said, we're going to have so much stuff from the NFL Combine and owners' meetings when those come up. I actually just booked my flight. I think Zach, we're staying at the same courtyard in Scottsdale.
I'm going to change it now, actually. So
yeah, now
thanks for that.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. All right, you see Zach and I obviously talking, but we are nothing without our awesome production crew. So big shout out to Sam Candle, Corey Palmer, and executive producer Jeff Goldman. That's going to do it for this episode of JFD. We'll see you guys next week.